Let's talk about why these Minnesota fraud hearings are necessary and why Democrats are doing what they always do when the facts get ugly: deflect, distract, and cry witch hunt. Because this isn't some little paperwork mistake. This is being described as industrial scale fraud, potentially in the ballpark of $9 billion. And that's not even across the whole government. That's inside a handful of social service programs. Feeding Our Future was 250 million, and even that was called the tip of the iceberg. So yes, we need hearings. Not because we hate immigrants or hate poor people, but because taxpayers deserve to know who stole the money, how they did it, and who looked the other way. Here's what the hearings put on the table, and notice how Democrats avoid talking about any of it. First, the scale and the pattern. Witnesses described shell companies, fake daycare centers, empty offices, and systematic overbilling for services that were never provided. They described consultants teaching people how to maximize claims across multiple programs, like fraud is a business model. Second, the oversight failure. This didn't happen overnight. There were warnings going back years. The claim is that standard financial controls could have stopped it. Instead, the system stayed wide open. Third, the cover up behavior. The testimony says fraud investigations got shut down or downgraded. Fraud got rebranded as overbilling. Committees were created to decide whether money should be recouped, which is a cute way of saying, let's keep this administrative so nobody goes to jail. There were even claims of backdated documents showing up after audits, which is the kind of thing that should make everyone's hair stand up. Fourth, the whistleblower retaliation. This is the part Democrats really don't want to touch. The testimony described intimidation, demotions, blacklisting, surveillance, and even officials allegedly monitoring communications for words like fraud and whistleblower. If even half of that is true, it's not just corruption, it's a machine protecting itself. And then there's the national security angle. Witnesses testified about money being funneled through informal transfer networks and potentially ending up with al-Shabaab. Democrats want to treat that like an offensive topic, but it's not offensive. It's either true or it isn't. That's exactly why you hold hearings, to follow the money and find out. Now, watch the Democrat playbook. Instead of answering the core questions, they pivot to xenophobia. They say, only a tiny percentage of the Somali community was indicted, as if that settles anything. Nobody is saying every Somali person is a criminal. The point is whether organized networks exploited the system and whether politicians were too scared or too compromised to stop it. Then they pivot to Trump, pardons, inspectors general, whatever. That's not a defense, that's a distraction. If your response to $9 billion in suspected fraud is, yeah, but Trump, you're basically admitting you don't want to talk about the fraud. Then they pivot to poor people and cutting programs. Again, nonsense. Fraud is what kills programs. Fraud is what makes taxpayers stop supporting safety nets. Fraud is what gets legitimate beneficiaries cut off when the whole thing collapses under corruption. So yes, these hearings are necessary, and the deflection proves it. When politicians spend more time policing language than prosecuting theft, you already know the rot is deep. And let's be honest, if Minnesota is ground zero for this kind of fraud, it's probably not unique. It's just the first place where the curtain got pulled back.